Today I'm running through the big six from the last few days of Premier League action and giving each of the clubs a big fat grade. That's for Man United's shock results to Nottingham Forest. Of course, Spurs getting a good win, Chelsea getting a good win, City, Liverpool, and of course, Arsenal. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. We're going to start off with what was an exceptional result for Liverpool against Newcastle. It's always been a classic game between the two sides. I know Newcastle's record recently in the Premier League has been poor. Their form at Anfield in the last 10 years is absolutely woeful. But you still have to mark it down as a massive win for Liverpool. And I actually think one of the most significant results for Jurgen Klopp this season, if not the most significant. I know they drew to Man City. I know they've got other good results this season, of course. But Newcastle at home, it's a brand new year. They've just seen Arsenal drop off. And you're looking at it, you're thinking the way they bombarded Newcastle, it was prime Jurgen Klopp Liverpool. It was that Liverpool side that got to the Champions League final against Real Madrid. I know when Karius threw it into his own net, that was a mistake. But that Liverpool side, I think, was the best I've ever seen Liverpool. The season after, I know they probably got more points in the league and stuff like that, but that kind of hyper-aggressive side that smashed Man City in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, it reminded me directly of that side, of the 17-18 Liverpool side. Very, very strong. The front six, whether it's Jota, Gakpo picked up a goal, Nunez, Diaz, Salah, they've all got something to offer. And Mohamed Salah is the one that brings all of them together. He is world class. He's the best player in the world at the minute, in my opinion. And he's got a point to prove. The performance against Newcastle was a guy that was enjoying his time at Liverpool, enjoying being the main man at Liverpool still, and a player that wants to win the Premier League again. I'm convinced of it. And I think that is a star factor that other clubs don't have. I don't think Arsenal have got that. Obviously, Aston Villa aren't really in the title race, in my opinion. And it's just Man City with Kevin De Bruyne. So Mohamed Salah against Newcastle, absolutely electric. But through and through, Van Dijk and Konate, that is becoming a very, very good centre-back partnership, if not the best defensive partnership in the league at the moment. People talk about Saliba, Gabriel, but they're conceding a few, and they look a little bit shaky. They're not being helped by the midfield ahead of them, in my opinion, but we'll talk about Arsenal later in the video. Liverpool look like a cohesive unit. They look completely fired up. They look completely energetic. And let's be real, this is the same manager that nearly won the quadruple a couple of years ago, had an off-season last season. I think that's down to Nunez not settling, Diaz being injured. So he was only a couple of players away from being like this last season, in my opinion. Newcastle 4-2, bombarded the hell out of them, and sent them back to St. James's Park with their tails between their legs. They're in a world of pain, Newcastle, at the moment. Their form has been shocking the last few weeks. But still, to do that to Newcastle with the amount of shots that they had was absolutely scary. There will be slight concern that they still conceded 2 in a game where they should have won 5 or 6-0. They should be keeping a clean sheet. That'll be something I'll be paying attention to in the next few games for Liverpool, because clean sheets win you Premier League titles at this point in the season. It's all well and good early in the season, outscoring sides, going toe-to-toe, but they can't be conceded. I think the Isak goal is the big one. Sometimes you're going to lose a corner to Botman. Sometimes that happens, especially to the quality of who he is as a centre-back. He's unbelievable. But the Isak goal was a little bit like knife through butter, and that will be an issue for Liverpool if they have to compete with City, winning 6, 7, 8, 9 games in a row. That will be a big issue for Liverpool, but we have to give them an A. I think it was one of the most significant results for Liverpool this season. Spurs versus Bournemouth. This went under the radar for me because people have kind of written Spurs off. I think they instantly had that Premier League title challenge label given to them early in the season. It was probably a little bit unfair based on some of the new signings that have come in and some of the players that have been brought back, like Yves Bissouma, for example. And obviously, it's his first season in Premier League management, and he's done very well. Spurs are now 1 point behind Arsenal. That's absolutely crazy. And I think Spurs, the top 5, are creating a chasm between them and West Ham, Man United, Brighton. You've got Newcastle, Chelsea in there, even Wolves. So I think there's a gap between those sides probably competing for the Europa League spots. We'll talk about Chelsea later in the video. And then Spurs up to Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, and of course Aston Villa in no particular order. So I do think that Spurs will come at least 5th. I think they've got the firepower of James Maddison coming back and Mickey van der Ven, which I think will be relatively soon for those two players. Maybe they go out and add players in January. I think their transfer strategy in the last 18 months has been absolutely exceptional. What if they add a bit of pace in midfield, which I think they need, especially if Sarr is, I think he's injured now, let alone going to the Africa Cup of Nations. Just some observations for me. I thought Richarlison's link-up play was absolutely fantastic. He's starting to get on the goal-scoring charts as it is. Son was fantastic as well. And it's a tough game. Spurs, Bournemouth a few weeks ago, people would have given Bournemouth a great opportunity, and Alex Scott scored a great goal. So they're in a fantastic vein of form, Bournemouth. So for Spurs to get a win, they look pretty comfortable. They look very, very aggressive, very good going forward as well. So I think Spurs, not too bad. I have to give them a B. Looking at their fixtures, they've got a big game in the FA Cup, Burnley. They have to be looking to win that game. They have to be looking to win the FA Cup. This Spurs side is a cup side. They might not have the longevity to go and get to top four because of injuries and squad rotation. They might not be that nuanced in their squad, but they certainly have a side, an 11, that can beat anyone on their day at a Wembley semi-final of the FA Cup. They have to look at Burnley as a result where they have to beat them, play a full-strength side and try and win the FA Cup. For now, it's a B for Tottenham Hotspur. Have to talk about Arsenal. Fulham. Shocking. They have a real lack of creativity. And despite the fact they've got this kind of fluid front three, two midfielders that are meant to be creating everything side to side. And at points, Declan Rice is the most advanced midfielder out of Odegaard and Havertz. And he's linking up play and doing all sorts. And it almost feels too much. He needs to be complemented in a midfield three. There's three midfielders. There's three centre midfielders in a 4-3-3 like this. And Arteta likes to have players come in and overlap the midfield. Think of Zinchenko, Ben White tucking into midfield. Obviously, that didn't happen with Kyrgios. It was more of a normalised back four against Fulham. And you felt that Fulham's midfield never really got outpowered, never outnumbered. I mean, Paulinho is fantastic. I mean, what a player he'd be for Arsenal, for example. He's of that calibre. He should be probably playing for the likes of Arsenal. Tom Kearney as well is a decent midfielder, but it was too easy. I mean, Willian dropping back, Bobby Reid dropping back as well. Alex Iwobi was kind of coming into that midfield. Once Arsenal play against a midfield five, you feel they got no chance of breaking anyone down. West Ham did a very, very similar thing. The front three have to do a little bit more. And that's down to coaching. It's down to confidence. Obviously, somewhere along the line, Arteta's put an arm around Martinelli and said, I want less solo runs, less individual play, less Brazilian flair, and more creating moments for other players, being more of a team player. And that obviously long-term is huge. I mean, Guardiola literally did it to Thierry Henry when he joined Barcelona, one of the most individualistically brilliant players to ever play the game. He made him a squad player to get the best out of everyone else, to get the best out of the likes of Iniesta, for example. The story for Martinelli is a sad one because he's the kind of player that would, I think, score against Fulham in this kind of opportunity. He had a couple of opportunities against them, and he looks like a shadow of his former self. He looks like he's not sure what he's doing. Somewhere along the line, Martinelli has to be unlocked. The same with Saka, same with maybe not Eddie Nketiah, but it has to be a coaching thing. It has to be a philosophical thing. At some point, Arteta has to say, I've never won the Premier League. I don't have the managerial credibility of Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp. I have to sometimes just say, look at someone like Manuel Pellegrini at Man City, where he unlocked Navas, Negredo, Aguero, David Silva, Nasri, and he just let them go. And sometimes that City side conceded a lot of goals, but he took opportunities in the league where there was a relatively weak standard of opposition like there is this season, and they just outscored sides. This Arsenal side, if they were unlocked in the training ground, they would absolutely be outscoring Fulham and beating them 4-3 or 4-2 as opposed to losing 2-1. They're too conservative for what they're doing. If they're going to be conservative, they have to put another man in midfield, or they have to tuck the wingers in. But at the moment, they've got these three forwards that kind of sit right up the pitch, and they're not creating anything, and they're afraid to do it. It's a really poor result. Back-to-back losses in the Premier League. I have to give them a D. Going to talk about Man City, comfortable win against Sheffield United. Some standout observations for me. Rodri, he is of the level where it doesn't matter what opposition managers do. It doesn't matter what Jurgen Klopp comes up with on the training ground at Melwood. It doesn't matter. Because if Rodri operates to the standard he did against Sheffield United, to the standard he has against Bayern Munich and Real Madrid in the Champions League last season, it won't matter and City will win the league. He's that good. He's that good. If he stays injury-free, if he stays suspension-free, he will influence City beyond any other player that can do it, in my opinion, beyond even De Bruyne. He was scoring a beautiful little Romario-like toe poke against Sheffield United. And it got City the kind of classic City result where I could see City getting 6, 7, 8 on the bounce in a very similar fashion. Akanji and Ake look like a mobile, more dynamic centre-back duo. Stones and Ruben Diaz will come back in. But at the moment, it's stabilised the situation of Ruben Diaz being out of form. And I think he'll be rested and rotated to the point where in March he'll be chomping at the bit. And it'll be Stones and Diaz back in for the big Champions League games and the big Premier League games. So it looks very, very healthy for City, very, very balanced. And some of the forward play was beautiful. Julian Alvarez, I love this guy. And it's almost sad because like Haaland takes all he takes all the social media clout and all the media interest. This kid's a superstar, Julian Alvarez. His mobility, his agility, his work rate is fantastic as well. He'd be such a City favourite, you wouldn't believe it, if he played more games last season, played more games this season. He has actually played a lot of games, but being the main man, he hasn't quite been that with Erling Haaland this season. Now he's got that opportunity. He's been absolutely superb. Have to give City an A for this week. We're going to finish with Man United, but before that, Chelsea, nerve-wracking late drama at Luton Town. They steamrolled Luton for a large part of the game. Cole Palmer is a shimmering light in a dismal and bleak football club at Chelsea. But football can change. Conte came in to a side that was 10th. Mourinho very similar and got them to winning the Premier League within a season. Poch won't be doing that. But you look at the table, they're not far off. They're not far off Man United. They're not far off, the Brightons of the world and that kind of 6th spot. If Chelsea can build at the back end of the season with Nkunku, Sterling, Cole Palmer, all playing beautiful football, and they come 6th, I think they're in a fantastic spot for next season. I really do. Because I think they'll be able to outspend more. And if they go out and get a world-class striker, Ivan Toney, Victor Osimhen, it's a beautiful situation. The back end of the game is deeply concerning. It's the way Pochettino was pumping his fist. Luton Town's a hard place to go for any club. It has been for Arsenal, it has been for City, and of course Liverpool. But still 3-0 up, and it looked like it could have been 3-3 out of nowhere. That'll concern Pochettino. It's a decent result. I'll have to give them a B. And finally, Manchester United. There was obviously a clip that went viral on Twitter of Morgan Gibbs White giving a team talk, and he sort of says, these lads don't want to be here. Then it cuts to Christian Eriksen, who looked like he didn't want to be there. The midfield for Man United has to be sorted. They have to be far more defensive. I think they have to go back to being boring Man United. They have been for 10 years, but they have to really believe that they're boring and they're hard to beat. They have to give protection to Johnny Evans. They have to. He's been playing well, by the way. He's been playing well. But they have, the first goal for Forest, where's Kobe Mainoo? Where is Christian Eriksen? The spaces between the lines was absolutely embarrassing for an away side as well. It was Sunday League, really, the amount of space that Nottingham Forest had in and around the Man United box. So the midfield has to go back to Amrabat flat with Kobe Mainoo. McTominay has to come in and do a role, be defensive. Give Bruno a free role, but I don't think he does enough. I really don't. I wonder if there's a world where he doesn't start games and at the moment, because I think he's been that poor. And Man United go back to being defensive and flat and rigid and counter-attacking and give more ability to Rashford to just run with the ball and see what he can do. That's where I think it's gonna work. The great Højlund goal against Galatasaray at home was down to counter-attacking football. He was running through on goal. So Højlund can be that kind of counter-attacking striker, Jamie Vardy-like striker, obviously different physicalities. But I think that's the only way Man United are going to get out of this mess. They're not going to achieve anything this season. It's an absolute embarrassment. We're going to have to give them... It was shocking. It was a D. Thank you so much for watching. If there's any clubs you want me to cover on the channel, make sure you let me know in the comments down below. And obviously, if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do. I'll see you very, very soon.